Hey everyone, welcome back. Our next guest is a freelance writer, author, and one of our past Open Artist Spotlight featured poets, a storyteller in her own right through her writing and, of course, poetry. She aims to inspire her readers to find themselves through rediscovery and reflection through self care, acceptance, and self awareness. In her new book, I Am My Father's Daughter, she shares a collection of stories written by powerful women globally about their relationships with their fathers, good, bad, or indifferent. And here now to share more, we welcome back to the show writer, poet, and author Janeth A. Benjamin. Hello and welcome.
Hi, it's good to see you again.
Likewise. Congratulations on this new endeavor.
Thank you.
Let's talk about this process of I Am My Father's Daughter's book launch, right? Because we're launching it, but there's a whole process which you're sharing. And I do want to open up by sharing with our viewers that this book actually consists of 23 stories from 5 different countries globally. Right? So what kind of process did that take in order to even put together?
The idea came and I sat down as a thinker and I mapped the whole thing out. I wrote up a strategy. I came up with the questions. I'm like, I don't want this to be just on the good side of things. I want people to be talking about their healing and their journey to that acceptance with relationships. One of the things I noticed, and just to take 2 steps back, I was actually editing a book for my friend when the idea came about. And I noticed that the relationship with her father changed in the story from something that was not so great to something that was great. And I was thinking, how many of us have stories like that? How many of us has different stories about our relationships? And in my own reflection, I realized that my own experience is about identity and relationships. And I think I mentioned this in the past. And these are some of the foundational relationships that really shape who we are. So father-daughter relationship is crucial. The process, after having the idea, mapping it out, I went to social media. So Instagram, Facebook groups. There are so many different Facebook groups for writers and writers. Every Facebook group I found that I could share the call for submission. It went far and wide. I tagged a lot of people in the Bronx. So many folks on the BronxNet market shared it in their newsletter. The Bronx is Reading shared it out. So many folks got together and helped me kind of push the word out. And then the mechanics side, it's just some Google Docs and it just set it up. They started coming in and I was like, whoa, this is actually happening. People are really, and I got emails, questions. I do have, I might say, a set of poetry because someone did ask about poetry. So I'm hoping maybe I can undertake another publication with only just poetry because, of course, we know where I stand with that. So that process was tremendous. Yeah.
All right. So let's take it back a little bit and let's just do a timeline factor, right? Because you're giving me the logistics of it, but I want to know when you started because here we are in August of 2022 and now is when it's been published.
So April 2020 was when, around April, about 2020 was when the light bulb went off. Started having conversations about right immediately after May, mapping out everything. I started pushing for the call around Father's Day in June of 2020. I let it run for like a month and a half. So by August of 2020, I had over 50 stories, 50 plus stories sitting there in a folder for me to comb through. Selection process ended around September of 2020. And then from then on, we went through a series of editings and things like that, cover selection to now putting it out in July of 2022.
So how were you able to select these stories, right? Because I went through the book as I skimmed through it, which I'm really looking forward to reading it. And what I noticed is that, you have authors from Portland, from Scotland, from the Philippines, from Alabama, Kansas City, Maine, California. And I'm going, oh my. And the stories range, right? They range from childhood experiences to recreating experiences that may have even been shared with them. So how did you choose it so that it has a beginning, middle, and end?
I just chose the stories based on when I got them. There was no, I wasn't going to think about, you know, I don't know, it just kind of flowed for me. So the first story, which is my story, I put that there for a specific reason because I wanted to start in the Bronx and end in the Bronx. So that happened. But the middle was just based on submission, how they came in based on the date. So once I selected the stories and I organized them, I was like, okay, this is the order. I just put, and then when I read it, I was like, whoa, this flow just seemed to work really well. So I just went with it. I didn't change the order or anything. And that was it.
So I know you said you opened with the Bronx and you closed with the Bronx,
Yes.
meaning two different Bronx stories. And what the opening is yourself, which I'm looking forward to getting a taste of your story.
Yes.
However, before we do that, I want you to answer this. Is there a thread that you found similarities in each story? Is there something that is very common in each story that is part of this book?
There's a lot of abandonment issues that came up. There are a lot of people who experienced people leaving, not coming back, or coming back. And so there's loss, abandonment, loss. There's a lot of gratitude across the board. And there's a lot of healing. If there's a level of growth that comes with being able to tell your story, but tell it in such a way that you're accepting what the position is. And that was key with all of the stories. Like there's acceptance, there's the abandonment, the loss, the gratitude, but also a general acceptance of what it is and how they're seeing their lives despite of and in spite of any issues that might have happened in the relationships over the years.
Well, thank you for sharing that, right? And the reason I asked you that is because we always want to acknowledge that at the end of the day, no matter where you come from, we're all human. We're all human. We're all human, and we all have similar stories in different ways.
Yes.
So on that note, we want to hear your story, or at least a taste of your story.
Yes. So my dad, who, as I shared with you earlier, his main question to me was, is there a balance? And there is. And I'm a lot like my father, but I'm also like my mother too. And my brother, who has the same name as my dad, shared this quote on Instagram back in 2020 that I thought was so perfect. So that's how I started my story, with a quote from my dad. It says, "You need to keep the kingdom of yourself and your temple in a position where you can function and serve your purpose." It says, "My brother Krishna posted this on his Instagram account and I had to borrow it. Daddy wrote it. Our father has never been a regular father. I recall his absence for many periods of my life, but he showed up at some of the most important times. My mother, despite her heartbreak, never spoke poorly of him and allowed him to still be in our lives. My father has 6 children. I'm the second oldest, and my brother Daniel and I were born in the same year, 4 months apart." And I want to leave that there because there's more. So although I was raised by my mother and my grandmother, getting to know my father meant letting go of all the conventional things about fatherhood. He never subscribed to stereotypes and laughed at those who did. His intelligence is natural, and I glimpsed his charm when we worked together. His concern is about my health, and I finally get it. It took some years of lecturing, but I finally got what the big deal was about taking care of yourself. He knew and tried his hardest to help me understand. I think we're all at that crazy place where we can proudly say Daddy wasn't all that crazy, but only because we understand his level of crazy, since we're all just as crazy. I marvel at the wonders of genetics and how we're all crafted with this trait so spot on. There is no denying that the apple didn't fall far from the tree, except these apples have been bearing fruit and continue to bear fruit because of one decision he made over 30-something years ago. Maybe one day I'll get the entire story, regrets and all, but for now, I am keeping the kingdom of myself and the temple in a position where I can function and serve my purpose.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Janeth A. Benjamin sharing her story that is published in her book that features 23 stories in 5 countries. That was a very intimate share.
Thank
So
you.
thank you. And once again, in your writing, there was once again, that demonstration of the humanity that exists within each and every one of us, despite our differences.
Yeah. I think one of my overall goals is for us to learn to see our parents as not just as people and not just the roles that they should play in our lives. And I think bringing that human side, like you mentioned, it really changes how we view them. And I think that's so needed in today because we have so much to heal from, especially from our parents. So
beautifully noted, and thank you for bringing it to our viewers. We are all healing collectively and through different forms, and so you guys are interested in learning more about yourself, right, through these writings of I Am My Father's Daughter. You can get it on Amazon, and once again, that was Janeth A. Benjamin, author and publisher of I Am My Father's Daughter. And for more on Janeth, you can visit MikiChronicles.com, and you can also check her out on Instagram at Miki Chronicles. Thanks again. Stay tuned because Bobby C's weekly sports roundup is coming up next.